Good afternoon once again. Okay. So today we'll study a simple SIG assembler. And then a SIG example program that illustrate the SIG assembler functions. Then first, what do you mean by assembler? So assembler is a system software that converts the assembly language program into the object code. Okay. And what are the basic assembler functions? Anybody? What are the basic assembler functions? So the translation of the source program into the object code requires us to perform the following functions. So first is converting the mnemonic operation codes into machine language equivalent or the object code. Then second step, convert the symbolic operands or labels into equivalent machine addresses. Okay. And the third step, build the machine instruction in proper format. Okay. So you all know that each instruction will have their own format. Okay. So you have to build the machine instruction in proper format. Then the next step is convert the data constants into the internal machine representations. And the last step is, or the function is, write the object program and the assembly listing. Okay. So these are the basic assembler functions. So then if the assembler, say for example, the SIG assembler only, simplified instruction computer assembler, if it tries to make only one process over the source program, okay, so there is a problem. Okay, that means all of the assembler functions can be achieved easily by sequential processing of the source program one line at a time, except converting the symbolic operands into the equivalent machine addresses. Okay, that means the translation of the addresses creates a problem. So what is this problem called as? The forward reference. So what do you mean by forward reference? A reference to a label, that means the symbolic operand later in the program is called the forward reference. That means if you try to translate the instruction which has the forward reference, no, will not be able to process this instruction. Okay, because we do not know the address assigned to this symbolic operand or the label, because the value of this symbol is defined later in the program. Okay, so at that moment, the assembler cannot translate the instructions, okay, that have the forward references. Okay, for this reason, most of the assemblers, okay, performs or makes two passes over the source program. Okay, that is pass 1 and pass 2. So in pass 1, the assembler will scans the source program or reads the source program for all the label definitions. That means it will assign addresses to all the parts of the program. Okay, and in the second pass, it actually performs the translation of the source program into the object code. And then in addition to processing the instructions of the source program, okay, the assembler must process the statements called the assembler directives. So what are the SIG assembler directives? The SIG assembler directives are start, end, byte, word, RESB, RESW, and so on. Okay, they are not generated into machine code, okay, but they help in performing the certain operations of the assembler. Okay. Then after translating the source program to object code, okay, finally, the assembler must write the generated object code onto some output device, say for example, the hard disk, okay, in a file. Okay, and this object program will be loaded into memory for execution. So let us look at the object program format. Okay, so the object program will be loaded into memory for execution. Okay. Once the translation of the source program into object code is done. Okay. And what is this object program format? Okay, so this object program contains 3 types of records. So which are those? The header record, the text record, and the end record. So what the header record contains? The header record contains the program name, that is name of the program, okay, if you have specified while writing the program. Then the starting address of the program. Okay. Then the length of the program. Okay. And then what the text record contains? The text record contains the object code, that means the translated instructions, that is nothing but the machine code. And also along with this, we have the data of the program. Okay. And together with an indication of the addresses where these will be stored. Okay. That means these object code will be stored. And the length of the object code in this text record. Okay. Then the end record. Okay. So the end record marks the end of the program. Okay. And also specifies the address of the first executable instructions. Okay. So all the object program will have these 3 types of records. Okay. Header record, text record, and the end record. Okay. Then what is the format of the each of these records? Okay. So first let us know the format of the header record. So format of the header record. So it is written from column 1 to column 14. Okay, here in a row. So what this column 1 contains? The letter H. The letter H indicates that it is a header record. And then column 2 to 7, that is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, may contain the program name. And then from column 8 to 13, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, the starting address of the object program, of course, in hexadecimal. And then column 14 to 19, the length of the object program in bytes. So this is also in hexadecimal. So that is the format of the header record. Then what is the format of the text record? Again, text record can be written from column 1 to column 69. Okay. So what this column 1 contains in a row, the letter T indicates that it is a text record. And then column 2 to 7, starting address of the object code in this record. Okay. So because we may write n number of text records. Okay. So because the object code that is written in one single text record is limited here. Okay. So we can write object code from column 10 to 69 only. So since we have limited this one, that text record in a line. Okay. So then you can exceed the text record on a new line. Okay. So then column 8 to 9, the length of the object code in this record. Okay. Length of the object code in this text record. Okay. In bytes. Then column 10 to 69, actually we'll write the object code. Okay. Represented in hexadecimal, 2 columns per byte. Okay. So each byte will be stored in 2 columns, are specified in 2 columns. And then end record. Okay. So in a row, end record goes from column 1 to column 7. So what the column 1 contains? The letter E indicates that it is a end record. Okay. And column 2 to 7 contains the address of the first executable instruction in the object program. Okay. That is the starting address of the program. So any doubts in this? Object program format?
No, sir.
So there will be one header record and then more than one text record. Okay. And then one end record. So then what is the general description of the function of the 2-pass seek assembler? Okay. So as I said, the assembler makes 2 passes for the source program. Okay. So passes is nothing but the moves. Okay. Pass 1. So in pass 1, what it does, it defines symbols. Okay. That means it will give the label the definitions. Okay, that means it will convert all the symbolic operands into their machine addresses, equivalent machine addresses. So this has been told in detail here. So in pass1, what we will do, we will assign addresses to all the statements in the program, all the statements in the sense, the instructions. Okay, each instructions in the program, and then we'll save the addresses assigned to all the labels for use in pass2. Okay, so because in pass2 we will actually translate the source program into object code. Okay, we require these addresses that are assigned to the symbolic operands, and then we'll perform the assembler directives, including those for address assignments such as byte and RESW. That means in addition to these, the assembler needs to process these assembler directives. Okay. Then that is about pass1. In pass2, what we'll do, we'll assemble the instructions and generate the object program. That means we'll translate the source program into the object code. So detailed function of pass2 is mentioned here. So first step is assemble the instructions. That means you have to generate the opcode for the mnemonic, okay. Opcode or object code, okay, and then lookup addresses. And then you have to generate the data values defined by byte word. That means you have to convert the data constant into the internal machine representation. And then you have to perform the processing of assembly directives not done during pass1. So if you have any assembly directives that are not processed in pass1, so we need to process those assembly directives in pass2. Okay. So then finally, you have to write the object program, okay, which contains the header record, text record, and the end record, and the assembly listing. So this is the function of the two-pass assembler. Okay. So let us take a simple SICK example program. Okay. So this is used to illustrate how the SICK assembler will translate this SICK example program into the machine language equivalent or the object code. So the following figure shows an assembler language program for the basic version of SICK. Basic version of SICK means the standard version of the simplified instructional computer. So as you all know that there are two versions of the simplified instructional computer. One is the standard version of SICK, okay, which is simply called as SICK, okay, and the extension version, which is called as SICK bar XE. So this is the program. Okay. So first column indicates the line number. Second column indicates the source statement, okay, and then the third column, the comments, okay. And as you know that the format of the source statement is it has that means the format of the instruction, okay. So it has label field, then it has the opcode field or mnemonic, and then the operand field, okay? And these are the comments. So if you observe the example program here, okay, so this program contains three routines. Routines means the subroutines. Okay. So which are those? So first is the main routine, okay, or the main function, which starts from the line number 5 and ends at line number 105. So this part. So this is the main program. Okay. So this main routine calls two other subroutines, okay, inside a loop. Is this loop. So we have a loop here, C loop. So we are calling two subroutine. One is called as RDREC. So using JSub instruction, jump to subroutine. Okay. We are calling a subroutine called RDREC, stands for read record. Okay. And we are calling another subroutine called WRREC, okay, using the JSub instruction. JSub stands for jump to subroutine. Okay, so this is the main routine that tries to call two other subroutine. Okay, so the subroutine names are RDREC and WRREC. And here is the code for this subroutine RDREC. So RDREC starts from the line 125 and ends at line 190. Okay. And what is the function of this subroutine RDREC? Okay. So this RDREC routine, as the name indicates, it will read the record from the input devices and stores it into some buffer. Okay. So buffer is defined here in the main routine. See here, buffer is of size 4096 bytes. Okay. And what is the function of the another subroutine WRREC? See, WRREC is written here. Okay. And this WRREC routine starts from line number 210 and ends at line number 250. Starts at 210 and ends at 250. Okay. So what is the function of this subroutine WRREC? So WRREC stands for write record. Okay. So this subroutine will write the record from the buffer onto the output device. Okay. And the device number is specified at the bottom here. Okay. See the device number. So device number is 05. So similarly here in RDREC, so we'll read the record from the input device whose device number is F1. Okay. And store it into a buffer. And the buffer is defined here. Okay. As I said. Okay. So this program contains 3 routines, one main routine and 2 other subroutines, okay, called RDREC and the WRREC. And we have given the program name, and also we have specified the starting address of the program using the start assembler directive. Okay. So in the beginning, we have used the start assembler directive to indicate the program name. Program name is what? Copy. Okay. And then what is the starting address of the program? 1000. And all the data declaration statements are written at the bottom of the program. You can see here. These are all the data declaration statements. See here. So these data declaration statements are written using byte, word, RSW, RESP, and so on. Okay. Similarly, in this this is in main routine. Similarly, in so other subroutines also. Okay. So all the data declaration are done at the bottom. Similarly, for the subroutine WRREC also. So all the data declaration statements are written at the bottom. Okay. So this is the data declaration statement. Okay. So no need to worry about each instruction in the program. Okay. You need to just know how to translate this source program into the object code as per the assembler functions. Okay. Next. Then we'll have another figure which shows the same program with the generated object code for each statement. And in this figure, the column headed LOC gives the machine addresses for each part of the assembler program. Okay. And in this program, we assume that the program starts at address 1000. So the same program, but with the generated object code, okay, for each part of the program. See, so in the first column, we have the line number. It is just for reference. And then LOC column, location. So what it says, the column headed LOC gives the machine addresses, okay, in hexadecimal. Okay. So this is the machine addresses for each part of the program. Okay. And we have assumed that the program started at address 1000. Okay. So where do you specify that? See here. The first address is 1000. Okay. And this is specified using the start assembly directive. Okay. The starting address of the program is 1000. So obviously the program starts at address 1000. So this is the SICK example program with the object code. Okay. So where is the object code written? Last column, okay? This part. So this is the object code. This is the object code for the main routine, and this is the object code written for the subroutine RDREC, and this is the object code written for WRREC. Okay, so same program but with generated object code. Okay. Now let us see how this source program has been translated into object code, okay, according to the assembler function. Okay, so what is the first assembler function? Anybody? So first function is converts the mnemonic operation codes into equivalent machine code or object code. Okay. So first come to the first line number 5. So what is there in line number 5? So we have the start assembler directive, okay, which specifies the program name. So what is the program name? Copy, and also specifies the starting address, okay, of the program as an operand. Okay, so what is starting address? It is 1000. So obviously the program will start from 1000. Okay, so since the start is an assembler directive, it will not be converted into object code. So do we have the object code generated for this here? No, there is no object code generated. Okay. Then what is the second line? That means the line, instruction at line number 10. So at line number 10, we have an instruction called STL. Okay, stands for store linkage register. Okay, with the content of the operand RET ADR. Okay, so first, as I said, in the pass one, what it does, it will assign machine addresses to all the statements. Okay, so then what is the address of this instruction STL? STL is starting from address 1000. Okay, because the program itself starts at address 1000, because the first line is the start assembler directive. Okay, we are not generating any machine code for this. So obviously the program starts at address 1000. Okay, so then the STL instruction is stored starting from 1000. Okay, so according to the assembler function, it will convert the mnemonic operation code. Which is the mnemonic operation code here? STL is the mnemonic operation code into object code. So what is the mnemonic operation code for STL? It is 14. Okay. And then, okay. So as I said in first pass, it will assign the machine addresses for all the symbols defined in the program. Okay. So after STL, what you have? We have the operand as RET ADR. What is this? It is a symbolic operand. Okay. So we need to know the value of this RET ADR. Okay. And this is defined at line number what? 95. See, RET ADR is defined at line number. So what is the address of this? 1033. So write it here. Okay. So in first pass, we have already generated the machine addresses for all the instructions. Okay. So then we already know the address of this machine address of this RET ADR symbol. Okay. And then write it here. Okay. In the object code column. Okay. So then what is the object code generated for this STL RET ADR? It is 141033. How many byte instruction it is then? Anybody? How many byte instruction it is? 3 byte. Okay, 14 is 1 byte, then 10 is another byte, and 33 is another byte. Okay, so then obviously, okay, 14 is stored at 1000, Then 10 is stored at 1001 address, next address, and then 33 is stored at address 1002. Okay, then obviously what is the address of next instruction? So address of next instruction will be 1003. Okay. So at line number 15, okay, so we have the instruction called JSUB. Again, what the assembler will do, assembler will convert the mnemonic operation code into equivalent machine code. Okay, so what is the new opcode for this JSUB? Opcode for JSUB is 48. Okay, and then what is the operand? Operand is a symbol, RDREC. Okay, so where the value of a symbol RDREC is defined. So at which line number? RDREC, see here. Address of this symbol RDREC. Okay, so this address assigned for this RDREC is 2039. Okay, write it here. Okay, 2039. Okay, now this is the complete object code for this instruction JSUB RDREC. That is 48, 20, 39. Again, it is a 3-byte instruction. Okay, obviously, what is the next address of next instruction? So this instruction will be stored starting from the address 1003. At 1003, 48 will be stored. At 1004, 20 will be stored. At 1005, 39 will be stored. What is the address of next instruction? It is 1006. So like that. So the object code for each part of the program will be translated by the assembler. Okay, that is the first step. Okay. So second step, convert the symbolic operand into the machine language addresses. Okay. So we have the symbols like first is there, no, it is a symbol. What is the address assigned? 1000. Similarly, C loop, what is the address assigned? 1003. Okay. And end fill is a symbolic name. So what is the address assigned to this? 1015. Okay. Then similarly, we have EVF. So what is the address generated for this? 102. EVF is also a symbolic operand. Okay. Then 3 is a label. Again, what is the machine address assigned? 102D. So like that. Okay. Then what is the third step? We'll build the machine instruction in proper format. So this is what we did. Okay. So for complete instruction, we'll write the object code. Okay, like this 141033. Okay. Then the next step is what? Convert the data constants into internal machine representation. So check which are the data constants defined in this program. So we have defined a 3-byte constant at line number 80. Okay, at 80. So using byte assembler derivative, we have defined a 3-byte constant. Okay, character constant. What is that value? EOF. Okay, which is stored at having the variable name EOF. Okay, and the character constant value is EOF. Okay, you have to convert this data constant into internal machine representation. That means decimal value of the ASCII code of this character. Okay, so the decimal value of the ASCII code of this E is 45 because each character is stored as a byte. Okay, 45 is the decimal value of the ASCII code for E. Okay, then for O it is 4F, and then for F it is 46. So like that, you have to convert all the data constituted to internal machine representation. Okay, then finally you have to write the object program and the assembly listing. Any doubt here, students? So like this, the object code is written for the subroutine RDREC. Similarly, the object code is generated for the routine WRREC. Write record, read record and write record. Any doubts?
No, sir.
Yeah, you understood now? Because you have to solve some problems in this. So we'll give a program, then you need to translate so that program into object code. Then finally, as I said, we need to write the object program. Okay. So as I said, object program contains 3 records. Which are those? Header record, the text record, and the end record. So let me show how to write this header record first. Okay. So this is header record. Okay. So above this, I have for simple understanding, no, for illustration, I have written the column name. Okay, column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, etc. Okay. So see the format of the header record and write. Column 1 is what? H. So in column 1, I have written the letter H. Okay. Then from column 2 to 7, we have the program name. So what is the program name? Column 2 to 7. Okay. Column 2 to 7, you have to write the program name. Program name is copy. So where do you find this program name? In the program. See, the start assembler directive will specify the name of the program. Name of the program is copy. Okay. Then column 8 to 13, starting address. So column 8 to 13, okay, up to this. So what is that? The starting address. What is the starting address of the program? It is specified, okay. Starting address is 1000. How do you know that the starting address is 1000? It is specified using the start assembler directive. Operand of the start assembler directive is 1000, okay. So start from the bit number 13, okay, 0001, okay. Start from the right side, okay, and then the remaining column you fill it as 0, okay, because the starting address is only 4 bit, that is 100, no, so remaining bit is specified as 00. So then the starting address is 001000. And next column, column 14 to 19. Okay, so column, see the column here, column 14 to 19 is what? So the length of the object program in bytes. So how do you find the length of the object program? So using the formula, length of the object program is the end location minus the start location plus 1. Okay. So if you observe this object code generated program, so what is the end address? So end address is at line number 250, check. So this is the end address, okay, at line number 250, okay. And what is the starting location? Starting location is 1000, okay. So 2079 minus 1000, okay, plus 1. So that will give you the length of the object program, okay. So what is the length? 1079, 7A, okay. So 20, so what is the ending address? 2079, and the starting address is 1000, okay. So 2079 minus 1000, okay, in hexadecimal I'm telling, plus 1, okay. So we'll get 107A. So write this. Start from again, last column is 19, A70A, 107A, and the remaining columns you write it as 00. So that is now we have written the header record. Okay. So here the cap symbol I have used just to break the columns. Okay. So column 1 is the letter H. Column 2 to 7 is the program name. Column 8 to 13 is the starting address. Column 14 to 19 is the length of the object program. Okay. So any doubts, students? Any doubts in writing the header record?
No, sir.
Yeah. Then we'll try to write the text record. Okay. So the next one is the text record. So then you need to know the format of the text record. Okay. So in column 1, okay, we have the letter T. So observe here, in column 1, you have to write the letter T, indicate that it is a text record. Just follow the format. Okay. Then column 2 to 7, starting address in this record. Okay. Starting address is, there is column 2 to 7, starting address is 0001. That means 1000. Remaining bits you write it as 00. Okay. So 001000. Obviously, the program starts from what address 1000, no? Yeah. So obviously, the starting address of the first test record will be that only 1000 only. And column 8 to 9. So column 8 to 9 of the text record contains what? The length of the object code. Okay. So right now you don't write this. Okay, length is specified as 1e. Okay, you can write it later. Okay, you can leave blank for these two columns. Column 8 to 9 is reserved for the length of the object code in this text record. Okay. Then column 10 to 69, okay, is reserved for writing the object code. Okay. Then how many object code for how many object code you can write? You can write object code for 10 instructions. Okay. See here, object code actually starts now. Column 10. From column 10, the object code starts. That means 2 columns per byte. So what is the object code for the instruction at line number 10? It is 141033. So write it here. 141033. Okay, you have to write 1 byte as 1 byte in 2 columns. Okay, so 14 is 1 byte. You have to use 2 columns, 10 and 11. Okay, 14 you have to write in 2 columns, 10 and 11. Similarly, 10 next byte. Okay, column 12, 13. So 33 you have to write in 2 columns. Okay, 14 and 15 like that. Then what is the object code of next instruction? Go on writing it. 48, 20, 39. See here, 48, 20, 39. In the respective column, you go on writing. Okay? So 16 and 17, 48. And in 18 and 19, you write 20. So like that. In 20 and 21, 39. So like that, up to 10 instructions, you can write the object code for 10 instructions. Okay? So then after writing the object code in this text record, you take the length of the object code in this text record. Okay, count the number of bytes. So 14 is 1 byte, 10 is another byte. That means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then hexadecimal, no, it is A, B, C, D, E, F, then 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, like that. Okay. Then you will get the length of the object program in object code in this text record as 1e. Then you write it here. Okay. From column 8 to 9, you write